At night, the bathhouse lamps of Dogo Onsen glow. Steam climbs the wooden eaves and wanders off into the dark. Behind a shoji door, a family whispers around a futon. Their mother isn't just tired. She's sinking, hour by hour, into a sleep too heavy to lift. Hours pass, then a day, then two. We call it encephalitis, inflammation of the brain. A century ago, Japan saw clusters of a strange kind. Shimin-sei noen, or encephalitis lethargica, the sleeping sickness. People slipped into deep somnolence. Some woke changed, moving slowly for years. Others never woke at all. You may have seen a story about a 1950s Japanese village where everyone slept for days. It's chilling, it's shareable, but it's not Japan. The best documented modern sleepy village is Karachi in Kazakhstan from 2013 to 2015, where residents collapsed into multi-day sleep with odd behavior and foggy memory. Officials later pointed to carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons seeping from a flooded uranium mine as the likely cause. The story mutated online and migrated east. But Japan's real sleep villages are older, from a century ago, when a mysterious brain inflammation brushed across the archipelago and left towns whispering about a Nemuribyo. Tonight, we follow one such trail through Ehime and the baths of Dogo and the mystery it left behind. Here's the split to keep in your head. The internet's 1950s myth versus the Taisho era reality. Between 1919 and the early 1930s, a nationwide epidemic called encephalitis lethargica, from here on I'll refer to it as EL, surged and then faded. Japan's 1924 headlines were confusing because two different brain illnesses hit in the same season. One was encephalitis lethargica, EL, cause still unknown, which scrambles sleep and wake, often shows droopy eyelids and double vision, and can leave people with Parkinson-like slowness afterward. With officials warning the illness wasn't yet a notifiable disease, counts were probably underreported. At the same time, a different enemy, Japanese encephalitis, or JEV, carried by mosquitoes, was exploding, with over 6,000 cases in 1924 alone. JEV usually starts with high fever, often hits children and older adults, and there's a vaccine for it today. Later, authorities unified the naming under Japanese encephalitis. That's why, when you read old clippings, Shimin-sei noen sometimes describes EL-like cases and sometimes JEV. Doctors tried to sort the stories. If the focus was on collapsed sleep and odd eye signs without much fever, it leaned towards EL. If it came with summer mozzies, high fevers, and quick decline, it pointed to JEV. In newspapers, though, the labels often blurred, which is why the coverage from the summer reads tangled now. This episode focuses on the sleep signature outbreaks that newspapers described in EL-like terms. It's August 16, 1924. In the Matsugai quarter of Dogo Yunomachi, an elderly woman in the licensed district dies. The diagnosis written, Shimin-sei noen, or sleeping sickness. A Red Cross hospital director, Sakai Wataro, explains to the newspaper. The brain becomes agitated. Everything looks doubled. The upper eyelid droops. The patient wants to sleep and keeps sleeping. There is no known prevention. By August 19th, nearby Kagawa had reported over 650 patients. Later tallies for that prefecture would run much higher. Ehime newspapers begin to use the nickname Nemuribyo, or the sleeping disease. It's in Imabari, one headline says. It reached Mitsutama, says another. Worried health officials tell the public to wear masks to isolate the sick and to brace themselves. The cause is unknown, the path of transmission unclear. By September 13th, almost a month later, Ehime had counted 212 patients and 70 deaths. It's a chilling ratio. Too many funerals, too many rooms where clocks ticked and the sleeper never stirred. Then, like a tide, the wave ebbs. Japan's first reports of this odd illness show up in 1919 in Nagano and Niigata. Doctors noted 3 recurring clues. Let's decode them in everyday language so you can see what families saw. Number 1. Somnolence. This isn't a little drowsy. It's the kind of all-body heaviness where your head nods, your eyes keep shutting, and you can't fight it. People drifted off again and again, even mid-conversation or mid-meal, like a magnet pulling them back to sleep. Number 2. Ptosis. One eyelid, or sometimes both, sags as if a string were cut. It gives a half-closed, sleepy look even when the person is trying hard to keep their eyes open. Families described it as, the eyelid won't stay up. Number 3. Diplopia. The world appears twice. 2 cups, 2 faces, 2 lanterns. A classic clue is that closing one eye often makes the doubling disappear. Patients might reach between the 2 objects because they can't tell which one is real. Those 3 signs, overpowering sleep, a droopy lid, and double vision, became the fingerprints of the sleeping sickness in Japan's early reports. Small clusters surfaced in 1919, rose again in 1924, and flickered a last time in 1929 before fading into medical history. Even when the sleep lifted, some survivors didn't return to who they were. Families described aftershocks, changes in mood, behavior, and thinking that lingered for months or years. Some examples include: Number 1. Mood swings and depression. A person who was steady becomes tearful, flat, or hopeless without a clear reason. Number 2. Anxiety and panic. Sudden waves of fear, racing heart, or a sense that something terrible is about to happen. Number 3. Irritability and sudden anger. Short fuse at small frustrations, snapping at family, slamming doors, arguments that escalate fast. Number 4. Apathy and loss of drive. A once active person now sits for hours, shows little interest, and needs pushing to begin simple tasks. Number 5. Trouble with planning and focus. Bills go unpaid, appointments forgotten, unfinished tasks pile up. They get overwhelmed by multi-step chores. Number 6. Sleep disturbances. Insomnia, nightmares, or an upside-down schedule where night and day get swapped. Number 7. Hallucinations or delusions, rare but reported. Hearing voices that aren't there, seeing shadows or figures, or believing something that clearly isn't true. Number 8. Personality changes. Friends say they're different now, quieter or strangely reckless, unusually suspicious, or oddly uninhibited. For families, these weren't textbook terms, they were everyday struggles. A spouse who now forgets to lock the door, a parent who stares at the wall, a sibling who can't stop pacing at 3 a.m. The brain inflammation healed, but the person's rhythms and temper didn't always come back the same. To understand why this illness warped sleep so completely, step into the middle of the brain. There's a control room the size of a grape tucked behind your eyes, the hypothalamus. Think of it as your home's thermostat and calendar fused into one. From here, tiny electrical whispers decide big, everyday things. It slides the dimmer between wakefulness and sleep, nudges your body temperature up or down so you don't overheat or shiver, dials hunger and fullness so a quiet rumble becomes a meal and a meal becomes enough. It turns thirst on and off to keep your water balance right. It sends orders to the pituitary, the hormone switchboard, which controls growth, stress, sex hormones, and your thyroid. It primes the fight or flight alarm when trouble is close, and it winds your daily body clock, deciding when your mind sharpens for morning and when your eyelids grow heavy at night. Hurt this little hub and the whole routine goes off beat. Days blur, nights stretch, appetite skews, thirst nags, hormones fall out of step, and sleep stops behaving like sleep at all. That's why this sickness felt less like fatigue and more like a switch thrown in a hidden room. Why did this matter? The illness left marks in the hypothalamus, the brain's small control hub. When the back or posterior part is hit, the brain's wake drive drops and people become excessively sleepy. When the front or anterior part is hit, the sleep switch itself fails and insomnia takes over. That's why some patients slept too much while others couldn't sleep at all. And the effects don't stop at sleep. When this hub is damaged, everyday systems drift. People can develop insomnia, heavy daytime sleepiness, or a flipped day-night schedule. Temperature control goes off, feeling overheated or chilled without a clear reason. Appetite and weight swing. Constant hunger with quick weight gain or the reverse, poor appetite and weight loss. Thirst and fluids can spike with lots of drinking and urinating. That pattern points to diabetes insipidus, different from the sugar-related diabetes mellitus. Hormones fall out of step. If cortisol, which is your stress hormone, is off-timed, you get fatigue and low moods. If thyroid is low, you feel sluggish, cold, and your weight changes. If sex hormones drop, there's a low libido, irregular menstrual cycles, and possible fertility issues. Behavior and mood can shift too. More irritability, apathy, anxiety, or impulsivity because the brain's automatic regulation isn't doing its job. A simple way to picture it. If your thermostat breaks, the house gets too hot or too cold. If your smart home hub crashes, the lights and alarms act up even though each device is fine. The hypothalamus works the same way. Small but central. When it's hurt, many systems go offbeat at once. Picture a small room near the baths. The shoji breathes with the wind. A lacquer tray grows cold. The doctor bows at the door and chooses the word noen, which means encephalitis. He tells him there is no known prevention, only quiet observation and time. Outside, someone laughs, thinly, then the street goes silent. The clock ticks on in a room deep with sleep. 3 days earlier, across the water in Kagawa, a fisherman had returned early from the docks complaining that the lanterns had doubled and that his eyelids felt like sandbags. He napped after lunch and slept through dinner. The family teased him, then grew frightened. By the next day, he could be prodded awake, mutter a few words, and fall through the floor of consciousness again. In the paper, the number 650 appears by August 19th. Later that month, reports say the prefecture is hard hit. The family looks at the page heading, then at him, and feels the page looking back. Up in the hills of Nagano, years earlier, a schoolteacher complained that the blackboard had become two. His right lid sagged, chalk slipped from his hand. The local doctor performed a spinal tap, drawing the clear fluid that bathes brain and spine, expecting trouble and finding nothing obvious. It didn't fit the standard infections. It fit something else, something that would soon have a name. Doctors started noticing the cases fell into three patterns. In the first, people were overwhelmingly sleepy and their eye movements didn't work right, so you'd see double vision or a drooping eyelid. They called that the somnolent ophthalmoplegic form. In the second pattern, movements slowed down. Faces became still, steps got small and stiff, and everything took effort. That looked Parkinson-like, so they labeled it the amyostatic akinetic form. The third pattern tipped the other way. People were restless and wired, couldn't sleep, and sometimes reported hallucinations. That became the hyperkinetic insomniac form. Different labels, same theme. Sleep was off, either too much or not at all. That's the paradox Japan read on its front pages. One disease that could make you sleep for days or keep you awake for nights on end. When panic rose in Ehime, authorities issued advisories treating the outbreak like a notifiable contagion, even though it wasn't yet codified as one. Isolate the sick, use masks, mind the coughs and sneezes. Newspapers spelled out the symptoms in plain language and urged caution on crowded trams and at the baths. By mid-September, a Kainan Shimbun or Kainan newspaper digest would later summarize, the surge had subsided. As the 1930s dawned, EL seemed to disappear. Medical journals report recurrences in Japan around late summer 1929. A reminder that the spark still smoldered, but the bonfire was out. Doctors who devoted their careers to this mystery moved on to other wars. Doctors still argued about what caused the sleeping sickness. Here's the easy version, no jargon, just 3 big ideas and how they stack up. Number 1, the bad flu hangover. Maybe the 1918 influenza pandemic didn't just cause lung illness, it triggered this brain problem too. The timing overlaps and many patients had early flu-like symptoms. Why this isn't a slam dunk? When scientists later looked for flu genetic material in preserved brain tissue, they couldn't find it. So, if flu played a role, it might have been indirect, not the virus sitting in the brain. Number 2, friendly fire from the immune system. Perhaps a common infection, not necessarily the flu, confused the immune system. After the infection, the immune system mistook parts of the brain, especially the sleep and movement centers, for the enemy and attacked them. Why this fits some facts. It explains the weird mix of symptoms, sleep problems and movement issues, and why some people had long-term changes even after the illness passed. But we've never pinned it on one specific trigger that explains every case. Number 3, something else we missed. There could be a different germ, or more than one, that we never identified, especially with early 1900s lab tools, or a combo of germ and immune effects. The bottom line is, we know the pattern, sleep thrown off, eye signs and later slowness, and the brain areas involved, the hypothalamus and movement circuits. We don't have a single proven cause. It's like finding footprints and damage after a break-in, knowing the room that was ransacked, but still not knowing who did it, or whether two thieves took turns. If you walk through Dogo today, you won't see a plaque for 1924. The baths are busy, the streets are loud, and life looks ordinary. The story survives mostly in clinic notes and newspaper lines. Double vision, a drooping eyelid, people who couldn't stop sleeping. We learned a few things from it. That sleep can be disrupted by damage deep in the brain. That illnesses don't always give us neat answers. And that communities handle uncertainty with whatever tools they have. Doctors, masks, prayer, patience. The epidemic passed. The cause never landed on one final explanation, but the record matters. It's a reminder to pay attention when small, local stories don't fit what we expect. Sometimes they end quietly. Sometimes they change what textbooks say. This one did a little of both.